Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. I hope everybody today is having a pleasant Christmas Eve, and we'll have a great Christmas Eve, obviously, Christmas Eve evening, and have a nice dinner, and then hopefully everyone has a very enjoyable Christmas as well. Now, with that being said, we're going to continue our coverage of the ongoing fighting that is taking place inside of the former state of Ethiopia. Today, we can confirm that the ongoing fighting continues in southern Tigray. We can also confirm that the city of Alamata is indeed contested. Again, we had heard reports that elements of the Abiy loyalist army had maneuvered into Alamata and had actually entered that city, and we believe that indeed elements of the Abiy loyalist forces did in fact enter Alamata and has also tried to proceed up further north, where they have run into some fairly significant resistance in the ongoing fighting that has ensued. And I talked about in the previous video in which a brigade-sized element or a Western brigade-sized element was engaged and all but destroyed, including the divisional commander of said forces of the Abiy loyalist itself. And again, in excess of 1,000 personnel killed, wounded, or captured in this battle, which then led to a counterattack to within the vicinity of Alamata itself. And as we know, and as I had reported earlier, the Tigrayan Defense Forces have not departed Alamata. There are still elements of the Tigrayan Defense Forces operating within the vicinity of Alamata itself. But again, as of right now, it appears that any further advances by the Abiy loyalists towards Korem and other areas of the Tigray region, especially southern Tigray, have been stopped at this point. And there appears to be no longer a movement of those forces, of those Abiy loyalists, continuing to move north. And also at the same time, we're obtaining reports that in some cases the Tigrayan Defense Forces are continuing to counterattack in the southern Tigray region as well. We're also picking up information about further Eritrean activity. I had reported, obviously, throughout our videos that the Eritrean army is operating really all over the former state of Ethiopia. So we see Eritrean forces in the Afar region, we see Eritrean forces in the Amhara region, we've even seen Eritrean forces, and we know that there are high-ranking elements of Eritrean leadership in Addis Ababa working directly with the Abiy loyalist general staff. But again, the information that we're picking up right now is that there has been shelling along the northern border of the Tigray region, specifically directed towards Shire. Now, I wanted to have a look at that, and I wanted to try and give the viewer a good idea of if, in fact, Shire was shelled by the Eritrean army from the border of Eritrea. Is that even possible? And I think when I show you the evidence of kind of what that border looks like and what would have to be done in order for the Eritrean army to shell Shire, I think you'll have a better idea that it may be a actual Abiy loyalist airstrike or a possible drone strike as well. So let's dive in here, and I'll try to show you what I'm referring to. So if we look at the closest border area where you have kind of the demarcation zone of the Eritrean border and the Tigray region border. And again, it's not very well marked. There is no a real official border line. That kind of led to the border conflicts that we saw in the late 90s and very, very early 2000s. But again, this is the closest point to the city of Shire from the Tigray Eritrean border. And again, as you can see, incredibly desolate, no major roads, dirt roads for that matter, are near the border area. So the deployment of heavy artillery, and again the idea that you could move significant forces into this area and then shell from again the closest point to the city of Shire. Now let's look at the distance. Hypothetically, let's just say they were able to get heavy artillery on the top of this mountain and start to engage across the border with the Tigray region. So we'll go from just as a bird flies to just the say the outskirts of Shire. So again, we're looking at 24 miles, and you're not getting that kind of distance unless you're using some sort of rocket-assisted artillery. And we don't believe the Eritrean army has artillery that could possibly hit Shire from that distance. So again, the likelihood that Eritrea is shelling Shire from that distance is fairly remote, unless it's some sort of a semi-ballistic missile or extended range rocket, which very well could be the case. Again, not saying that could not occur. I would just say it's doubtful that we're seeing an actual artillery strike by the Eritrean army on Shire, given that distance. And again, if we'll start from the closest point, and we'll basically run the border until we get to an area where you can even theoretically see non-light infantry operations, meaning there's infrastructure and roadways that could be utilized to use heavy trucks to carry heavy artillery, ammunition, and obviously the manpower it takes to deploy those sort of systems, because obviously men cannot just tow heavy artillery great distances. They have to have mechanization to do that. So again, we're running down the border, and as you can see, again, very sparse border area, hilly, mountainous. Again, very little infrastructure, very conducive to light infantry operations, but again, heavy mechanized operations. All you really have are dried out wadis and mountains and hills. And again, this is the terrain across the entire most of the border with the border of Eritrea and the Tigray region. It doesn't really get more advantageous for mechanized forces or motorized forces until you get farther to the west, way over here, and then it becomes a little different. Obviously, you have a roadway and some very small towns and villages, but again, very, very sparse. And it's just not an ideal area to supply large bodies of forces. And then obviously, during the fighting between the Eritrean army and the former state of Ethiopia back in 1999, when Ethiopia was a cohesive state, they again a lot of the fighting was reminiscent of something out of World War II. And if we measure that distance from where you can actively see quite possibly motorized operations take place, and again, this is as a bird flies from the town of Shire, again, you're even looking at a greater distance, so about 50 miles. So what would have to have happened is if there wasn't an Eritrean attack on Shire, especially with the use of heavy systems such as 122, 130 millimeter, 152 millimeter gun systems, artillery systems, howitzer systems, then obviously the Eritrean army would have crossed the border at this location and entered the Tigray region. And again, there's simply no artillery system other than long-range, short-range ballistic missiles that could be fired from the border with Eritrea, just across the border with Eritrea, and hit Tigray. Again, this is a 50 miles as a bird flies, and none of those artillery systems can reach out and touch Tigray from this border area. So again, just to try to give you a better idea in terms of what we're hearing, the rumor that we're hearing in terms of Tigray being attacked by artillery from Eritrea, I would say it's very remote. Is it possible that Eritrea is using other systems, such as ballistic missile systems? That is possible. And again, that would be an issue where we could actually have a B loyalist drones, especially the Wing Loon 1, which ordinarily doesn't carry precision guided munitions. The Wing Loon 2 does. Wing Loon 1 can, but usually the Wing Loon 2 is designed for strike missions. The Wing Loon 1 is more designed for the reconnaissance role. So we could see the Wing Loon 1 operating over Tigray, possibly giving GPS coordinates to a ballistic missile system inside of Eritrea, and then having that missile fire and possibly hit a target inside of Tigray. Or it could be a retribution strike, as I like to call it. And again, that would mean that the Eritrean army doesn't have a designated target inside of the city of Tigray and is simply launching ballistic missiles in hopes that it hits a fairly populated area or towards the general location of a possible known military base or military training camp inside of the town or environments of Tigray, which obviously they do exist, they're out there. But again, the idea that the Eritrean army could actually hit those targets without some sort of an exact location is doubtful. And Tigray is a valid target in terms of it's a fairly large a town, obviously, with military bases near it. It has an airstrip just outside of the town as well. And again, it's something that is probably being utilized by the Tigrayan Defense Forces that are operating in these areas. I have no doubt that because of the mobilization that has occurred inside of the Tigray region, that as you can see here, this is most likely a fairly large military base to the west of Tigray, and would at some point be a target of the Abiy loyalist Air Force and possible strike aircraft by the Isaias Afwerki regime inside of Eritrea. But I wanted to talk about that. Again, we are absolutely hearing about increased activity of the Eritrean army along the northern border. But I just wanted to try and show you the difficulty it would be for the Eritrean army without moving into the Tigray region to actually strike Tigray with heavy artillery. Now, we're watching the western border of the Tigray region, obviously very, very closely. We anticipate that there could be a uptick in fighting, quite possibly with the Tigrayan Defense Forces moving into Western Tigray and quite possibly being supported by elements of the Sudanese military, quite possibly other external actors as well, supporting the Tigrayan Defense Forces in its efforts to reclaim Western Tigray. And again, the Eritrean army is operating rather significantly in Western Tigray, along with heavy amounts of Amhara regional militias as well. But again, that is the current updates that we have right now. We are going to continue to provide you, the viewer, with more information. Again, we're watching several different things right now, and we're waiting on some additional information from some of our sources. And again, we have the benefit of having information coming in from both sides of the conflict, which is beneficial. But again, we will continue to update and report and bring you, the viewer, more information soon. Again, I hope everybody has a beautiful Christmas Eve. Spend this time with your family and loved ones. It's been a very difficult year for a lot of people all across the globe in terms of the pandemic, and it's not getting any easier in some cases for some people. But again, I hope everyone has a wonderful Christmas Eve, and we will have more content very, very soon. Have a good day, everybody.